All right, good morning, everybody. We're going to call this meeting to order of the Green Valley Special Utility District. Today is October 24th. Time is 9 o'clock. We're going to establish a quorum. All board members are present and accounted for. If everybody could rise for the invocation and the pledge. Dear Heavenly Father, we are so grateful for all the blessings you bestowed on Green Valley and its ratepayers and employees. Please keep them coming in the future and beyond. As far as the season of the election right now, please keep it honest and fair. Please keep the public informed of the candidates and bless us with the right people in the right positions. Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. All right, we're going to public comment. At this time, I don't believe we have anybody for public comment, so we're going to be moving to the consent agenda. All items listed below are considered to be routine, non-controversial by the board and will be approved by one motion. There will be no discussion of these items unless a board member so requests, in which case the item will be removed from the consent agenda and will be considered an action taken as necessary as part of the order of business. So we have D 1 through 6.
I'd like to pull D6, please.
Yes, sir. Okay, do I have a motion for D 1 through 5?
I'll make a motion that we approve the consent agenda items D 1 through 5 as presented.
Second.
Okay, I have a motion, a second. Any discussion? None? Okay, all in favor? Aye. Motion approved unanimously. Okay, D6, Mr. King.
Yeah, this is a new report that we haven't had before. I'm going to let Phil explain it, but it's an upgrade. Let's just say that.
Yes, sir. So the investment committee looked at this report earlier in committee meeting this week. Basically, what this is, you've been getting the information, but it's been in it's been mixed into the rest of the agenda items over time. So what we have to do is pull it out and do a quarterly report so you can see clearly just the investments that Green Valley has. This complies with the Public Funds Investment Act. And so now this brings us into compliance. You'll see that every quarter. We'll do a quarterly report. And as you looked at the figures are pretty good. So we're doing pretty well with our investment money. And a recommendation for staff is to approve this. Been any questions?
And to add on to that, this was a ding on our audit last year. So this is going to correct that comment on the audit.
Awesome. Thank you all for your effort.
That I'll move to accept item D6 on the consent agenda.
I have a motion by Mr. King. Do I have a second? Any discussion?
I just want to commend Mr. King on all of his hard work. He's brought this committee and our investments up to snuff and been an incredible benefit to GVSUD. I want to publicly thank him for all of his hard work and efforts.
Thank you. It's the committee, but thank you.
Thank you, guys. All right, I have a motion and a second. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? No. All ayes have it.
Mr. Priest, can we
Yep.
move to item I, if you don't mind? Next.
Yep, we'll jump to item I real quick in consideration for the members that are here for item I. It's time. Consideration of possible action related to the resolution 2024-10B approving a resolution by the Board of Directors of the Alliance Regional Water Authority authorizing the issuance of contract revenue bonds in an aggregate principal amount not to exceed $42,630,000 for the Canyon Regional Water Authority in connection with the regional water supply contract project and approving the other related matters. Mr. Graham Moore. Good morning, sir.
Good morning, and for the record, my name is Graham Moore, Executive Director of Alliance Regional Water Authority. Appreciate the opportunity to be before you today. I've got two different goals I want to do with this item. First is give you some overall project updates as to where we're standing in the delivery of water. And then the second component of this is to get into the actual action we're going to ask you to take today to approve the SWIFT funding for this next year. Before I jump in too far, I do want to introduce a couple of people we have with us. I've got Clayton Chandler with McCall, Parkhurst, and Horton, who is bond counsel for Alliance Regional Water Authority. Also have Jennifer Ritter with Specialized Public Finance. She's the financial advisor for Alliance Regional Water Authority. So they've helped us through this entirety of this process. And we're all here when we get time to get to the SWIFT update to answer any questions you may have on the resolution. Do I have control of the slides or do I need to? Okay, if you go ahead and advance to the next one. did want to start with kind of where we're at in the overall update of delivery of water to our various entities and including Green Valley SUD. So this is our overall system. Just as a quick reminder, on the far right side, we've got our water treatment plant and well field in far eastern Caldwell County. You see various pipelines with letters in them. We've split up our pipeline segments into 5 different design packages and construction packages, A through E. So that's what
Excuse
each
me,
of those.
Graham, I apologize for interrupting. Is this the only map that we have of this? Is this in our packet and on which page?
In our packet.
What? I'm sorry. I just want
No
to make
problem
sure
at
I'm
all.
following along.
Sure.
Look at the really bottom, look for the first. First blue icon.
Thank you. Graham, go ahead. I'll find it.
Sure.
I apologize.
No problem at all. So again, we've got A through E, different pipeline segments. Kind of in the middle of the page, we have a Maxwell booster pump station where we repressurize the water, descend it to our customers. Coming down to the south and west, we have the elevated storage tank, the southern elevated storage tank that sits kind of towards the end of segment D and before we move into segment E. And this is where Green Valley Special Utility District is going to receive its water through that segment E pipeline. The water is actually delivered at the Kenyon Regional Water Authority Lake Dunlap Water Treatment Plant, and then it makes its way on to Green Valley. And then up to the north, we've got pipeline segment C, and then ultimately we have some other infrastructure, what we call 1A up there that was built previously. So if we go to the next slide, just trying to show what's actively still in construction and what infrastructure has been installed. So you can see here, based on the red lines, that everything to the east, west, and then coming down to the south, the infrastructure has been installed. And I'll give a bit more updates on segment E here shortly. So the bulk of the construction effort, the day-to-day, putting in pipelines and working through various aspects is kind of in that middle section. And that's really tied to what our segment C pipeline is. We issued that contract in April of this year, and they've got 3 different pipe crews laying that pipe across that area to get water to Kyle, to County Line Special Utility District, and the second delivery to San Marcos. And then everything to the north of that has already been installed. In terms of segment E, which is again is the last piece that is needed for Green Valley to get your water, for a while we've had a connection made to New Braunfels utilities on that segment E. So we've been trying to do that last piece from the north side of the Guadalupe River, crossing under the Guadalupe River and tying to Lake Dunlap. I'm happy to report that that connection's been made. It's been hydrostatically tested, and yesterday it was disinfected. Today we'll pull the back tees on that. We expect to have the results no later than Monday that would pass its back tee test. And we're starting up all the equipment at that delivery point tomorrow. So our expectation is Monday the water will be available for Green Valley to start taking out of that system. I know it's been a little bit delayed. We hit some significant groundwater issues at the very tail end of that section to date. I'm gonna knock on wood because we still have some pipeline ongoing. It's the only place we've hit any significant groundwater, and we lost some time with that. But we're all tied in. We're hydrostatically tested. We'll get proof that we're disinfected. We believe we're disinfected. And then that water will be available on Monday. And we'll make sure to know that Mr. Gage is aware that that is available at that point in time. So that's kind of, I think, one of the critical updates. I've got some others I'll provide you on some of the other aspects. But before I move on to treatment plants, some other things, any questions on the pipeline aspect?
I just want to point out to the board, when we did the geotech bores for this segment E, the lake was down. Now that when they ran through construction, the lake was up. So I believe that. Mr. Moore, can you speak to the short extension of pipe at the Canyon Lake treatment plant?
Yes, sir. So we originally had one location identified as the delivery of that water into a tank for Canyon Regional Water Authority, ultimate use by Green Valley. The Canyon Regional staff later reviewed that a little bit more closely and preferred a different location for that tie-in. And so last month, our board approved for our design engineer to go in and design the extension to move that delivery to a different tank and location. So that design's underway. We'll then get a contractor out there to build that. It's not a large project. It's a relatively small effort on that plant site, but and we'll need to work with TCEQ to get their approval because we're entering a new tank and go through that process. So all that right now is underway. Water is still available, Green Valley. There is a way for Keenan Regional to take the water and move it and make it available to Green Valley, but we're working on a more permanent solution to that that will more fully satisfy Keenan Regional Water Authority's request for the delivery location.
Could waiting for TCEQ approval delay that project?
We will have to get their approval before we construct the project. We have that built into our timing and when the engineer needs to get their documents together to get them submitted and get that reviewed by TCEQ.
So you don't foresee a problem?
I do not foresee a problem. It's something we've been through with every delivery point we've had. We've been through the same process with them. So I think we've got a set process. It does take 90 to 100 days to get their review and approval of something like this, but we're well versed in that process at this point.
Thank you.
This is the discussion we've had with David McMullen, the lead operator at CRWA.
No, absolutely. I'm excited we're getting this project to the finish line. I'm always concerned about any potential roadblocks that would mess with our timeline on that. So.
Right. And again, I believe as of Monday, we should have water available. We'll confirm that. The other fix, what I'm calling it, air quotes fix, is a longer term solution that will just make it more efficient for Keenan Regional to move that water in the future. If we can go the next slide, water treatment plant, we'll give you a few updates on some of our other bigger facilities. Of course, this is a rendering of what we expect the site to look like at the end of construction. We'll go to the next slide. We've got a couple of pictures here of construction as of late last month. All of our facilities are there in place. Even since then, these photos are taken. The contractors finished up some final grading. You can see we've got our paving installed. We still have revegetation to go through. Of course, it's normally October we would target as an ideal month for revegetation, but it's been hot and dry, and so we still have a ways to go to get any vegetation established out there. Really, more importantly, from a functional standpoint, we required in our contract documents the contractor to go through a 30-day performance demonstration test to prove that the plant can produce the quality of water that we needed and the capacities that are required. And so today is the last day of that 30-day testing period. As with any testing performance, there's been some issues identified that we're having to work through and resolve, particularly with some chemical mixing and trying to get those dialed in where we want. But on the whole, the plant's been able to produce good quality water that meets our targets that we wanted, and they've been able to meet the capacity requirements that we had in the contract. This was one of the key steps that the contractor had to pass in order to get to substantial completion on the project. There's still a couple other things that are hanging out there, like some of the site security aspects and some communications aspects that we're working through. So we're not ready to say that they're going to be at substantial completion just yet, but they are much closer by getting to this point in time. And it gives us a lot more confidence that the plant's able to perform the way we need it to perform and provide good quality water to all of our customers.
Graham, just a quick question. It's not a vital interest as far as performance in the product you're delivering, but I'm looking at all the facilities, and I kind of knew in my head there was a lot of facilities to support this operation. How many personnel are you up to maintain and run this whole system?
We have 3 full-time personnel and 1 part-time bookkeeper. We outsource all of our design, construction, and engineering. And then about 18 months ago, we entered into a contract with GBRA to be the operator of the system and do all the maintenance.
That's what I was getting to the meat of is, okay, I see it a lot, the need for a lot of operational people there. Where were you on that? But that answers that question.
And I believe they have about 6 full-time people dedicated to the system right now. And then they have the ability to pull in other resources as necessary if there's something that arises. All right, we can move on to the next slide then. Booster pump station. This is what it looked like before we got out there. Again, if we can go to the next slide, just a kind of an update there as to what this looks like. And want you to pay particular note of this slide. I'll get to the reason why in a little bit future, but we've got the 1 5 million gallon storage tank there in the back. You can see we've got a lot of our pumps set up there. One bank of pumps there is set to drive the water to the south. Another bank of pumps drives the water north. And then from this location, we're able to gravity flow to the west at San Marcos Water Treatment Plant. So it's an ideal hydraulic location. You can see there's several different slots there in the pump bays where we have plans for future pumps. And I'll talk a little bit more about that in a minute. Backup generation, electrical building, and then site paving. So that site is in pretty good shape, able to move water through there without any issues. So still some work to go, but we're in pretty good
So
process.
Green Valley's water will come through this.
That's correct. And I didn't put it in here, but if any of you that have driven along 123 in Caldwell County, you saw elevated storage tank went up. That's our elevated storage tank. We did not put a logo on it so as not to cause confusion for the local ratepayers there as to who to pay water bills to or anything like that. That is the elevated storage tank on our south line, and Green Valley's water also goes through that and will provide us some additional storage and some additional hydraulic pressure. Should we lose the station for a little point in time, we could still deliver water to Green Valley. Okay, I think if we hop down to the next slide, then just update on schedule. You can see we've got a lot of these projects, and we're hoping that construction ends in late 2024. Pipeline segments A, B, D, and E are substantially complete, but we've got to get to final completion. There's a lot of still restoration on the individual easements they've got to get taken care of, get those landowners, get the fences set right, get all the revegetation done, that type of stuff. We're able to move water successfully. That's not the issue. It's just the final touch up, which takes a fair amount of effort. And so we've still got to get focused on that. I mentioned the water treatment plant. We're not quite at substantial completion. So late 2024, it'll be tight to get that one to final, but we are pushing, the contractor's pushing to get that one done. Same with the booster station. And then the elevated storage tank, actually had an update since I put this slide together. Our engineer deemed it finally complete about a week ago. And so that's in good shape. We have that one ready. Segment C is still ongoing, as I noted. And then we have a north elevated storage tank that still needs to move forward as well. That's it for our primary infrastructure needed to move water everywhere. That's kind of all the construction updates I have before I get into the SWIFT funding. So unless there's any other questions on kind of where we're at in construction.
I do have a question. Previously, there was a building that was going to be costing approximately $4 million for the aforementioned 4 employees. Is that $4 million building still in the plans?
It is still in the plans. We have had a little bit of a setback with that, in that the previous architect we had selected to do that work, or actually design firm we had selected to do that work, no longer is offering architectural services. And so we're having to reset with an RFQ and go through a new selection to get an architect on board to go through that design.
So
Mr. Sherman has bent my ear on a couple of times about making sure we right-size that facility and even the necessity of that facility. And so I still think there's still ongoing discussions that need to happen at the Alliance Water Board level to set that final direction.
okay. And I needed to bring that up because I wanted to specify to ratepayers that this building wouldn't serve any purpose for GVSUD. It would serve a convenience for you guys. That's all it is. GVSUD was in the building that we see right behind us. We had to go to different locations all the time to have our own board meetings. We did this for years and we were fine with it. And we are an actual water company. I understand you guys do a lot of water, but you have 3+1 employees. I do not believe that justifies a $4 million price tag, which now you just said is going back for RFQ, which could potentially be even more. And by having it in these plans, you're putting us on the hook. You're putting our ratepayers on the hook to pay for that $4 million. Of course, yeah, we're not shelling out all $4 million of it, but you're about to ask us for a lot of money. And a good percentage of that money is going to go to a building for 3+1. And I don't think our ratepayers are going to be fine with that. I'm not fine with that.
So just to make sure we're all on the same page, we're 10% of ARWA, right? So 30 to 30 on CRWA. So out of that 4 million, our portion would be 400,000. So just to kind of keep that math in your mind when making these decisions.
And James, I have repeatedly raised your area, the enthusiasm that you do. I also like to point out Maxwell is building a new facility directly across from the booster pump station. So while we're talking about that here, that was going to be at our meeting comment to you regarding James' concern. So
Real quick, one thing to consider if you haven't, Mr. Gage, can you make sure Graham has, what was that program called that we had a presentation on. Now this, that building, Sourcewell. So Sourcewell, they have pre-engineered metal buildings, turnkey, that are a substantial savings to any organization because it's already, as long as you give them the dimensions that you're needing, it's already pre-engineered, everything's done, seals, they sourcing, all that stuff, they really get it down to where it's a big difference than outsourcing to an architect, engineering firm, all that stuff, which I don't know where you're at on the contracts on that stuff, but something to consider because they have proven through, case studies that they've saved municipalities a lot of money. So just for consideration.
Sure. And James?
Yeah.
I got you. I have been conveying your concerns and I will continue to. And I'll try to look for, solutions.
And
So-
when someone says RFQ already, everybody knows what RFQ means. We all mean it's going to get more expensive. Whatever you were just doing, when you do an RFQ, it just got more expensive. So I'll leave it at that.
I will also add that I remember your comments very well. I remember the discussion last year that has not been forgotten. Mr. Sherman has reminded me as well, but that the discussion here has not been forgotten or put aside.
I appreciate that. Thank you,
Just
sir.
to follow up to that, and I will tell you, I'm slightly undecided, although there's our 10% or 20%, whatever. How many square foot is that office space projected to be?
I'd have to go back and look. I don't want to give you a false
ballpark will work.
estimation. I want to say it was on the order of 10 to 12,000 square feet. And then we had some lay down areas around it and everything. So it was the full site development was the 4 million. It wasn't solely the building facility. But, part of that was that it considered operational staff being housed out of that facility and that being the main hub for operations. So in the case that Alliance Regional Water Authority wanted to step back in and take over our own operations, hire own staff, that's where they would then be housed the majority of the time as the central part of the entire system to be able to get out and deal with all the facilities that we have. Of course, we'd still have operators out at the plant, but that was the basis behind some of that sizing.
You consider, and this is just an idea, far be it from us to demand, but would you consider at the current time designing something to house your 4 or 5 staff with ultimate design for expansion as needed?
Yes, sir. I think that is a key part of our ultimate consideration and what I would term the right sizing of the facility now versus having some demising walls and the ability to expand that
Right.
in the future and make that possible at that point in time. The $4 million though included kind of the full facility of things. And I do think there's ways to scale that back significantly. And
Thank you, John.
okay, the second part then, and the reason we're here for action today is to talk about SWIFT funding that we've applied for. And this comes in kind of 2 different parts. The first part is what we started with last December when this board, along with all of our sponsors, approved the bond anticipation note in December 2023. And we told you at that point in time that our intent was to come back to you this year and refinance that ban through the 2024 SWIFT program. And so the first part of what I'm going to discuss takes care of that refinancing as we discussed last year, following up on that plan. And then the second part is the area has continued to grow significantly, especially over the last year or so. So many of our sponsors have approached us and said, hey, we had in the plans to do expansions, what we called phases 1C and 1D. Can we move forward with that expansion now to make that water available to all of our sponsors sooner rather than later, as they're getting more and more demands for that water in their individual systems? And so the other piece of financing associated with this is for that expansion. So I want to talk and give you a few slides about that expansion. So if we'll go to the next slide. This is a site plan of the water treatment plant. And what I'm trying to show here with all of these colored blocks are all of the elements that have to be added in an expanded treatment plant capacity to make water available, the full phase 1C, 1D water available to all the sponsors. Also want to note that we are partnering with the Guadalupe Blanco River Authority again on this. They've requested an additional 9,000 acre feet of water through this system. And so by working together in total, Alliance Water customers are able to save $14 million in economies of scale by doing this expansion at one time versus and phasing it and doing it separately. So you can see basically every major process unit has to be touched in order to get maximize our amount of water we can push through the system. New raw water tank, new rapid mix basin with CO2 and lime added for treatment purposes, doubling of the filters. So that's 6 new filters, making it 12, expansion of the solids handling, and then finally, well, not finally, 2 new clear wells. And then finally, adding 3 different additional high service pumps, which had always been planned there at the bottom end of the station. So the good news is we get through this expansion, and this completes the vision of what we had as our phase 1 Carrizo water treatment plant at the site. Anything above and beyond this, we would have to do as a separate train, separate system at a water treatment plant. So this is a significant effort to do this part. If we go to the next slide, obviously just treating water isn't enough. We've got to get raw water to the facility in order to treat it. And so we have to drill 7 new Carrizo wells and then construct the raw water lines to bring that raw water to the water treatment plant for processing. And so that's what we have laid out here. Again, previously we had looked at doing it in kind of 2 different steps, but the demand is there. They come as a scale makes sense to move forward with this as one comprehensive project. The 7 wells are already permitted with the groundwater conservation districts. We have all that in place. So we just need to move forward with the construction of the effort. And then if we go to the next slide, finally, the last component of the expansion is at the Maxwell Booster Pump Station site. I mentioned when we saw that picture earlier that we had a few pump bays there that were empty. This expansion would fill in those with the last 3 pumps that we need, set in the electrical gear to power those, and then add 1 new 5 million gallon ground storage tank, which the site was planned for. So those are really the 3 different components that we need in order to expand to meet the end of what we call phase 1. So it's the raw water, it's the water treatment plant, and then it's Maxwell. All of the pipelines that we have in place are already sized for this, so we don't have to do new treated water pipelines. We don't need new elevated storage or expansion there. We have the delivery points, so none of that part changes. It's really now limited to these different components. We go to the next slide then, what that means to Green Valley. And again, I think this kind of flows down and shows, Mr. Frias, your kind of point about what's Green Valley's share of all this. Canyon Regional Water Authority is contracted to Alliance Regional Water Authority for 30.89% of the water that we produce, and they in turn pay for that share. You, as Green Valley, then have a contract with CRWA where you are a little bit more than 1/3 of their share. And so that's what I've highlighted here on the bottom of the screen. Right now, what we're constructing is that second column, what we call phase 1B. And so as of Monday, you'll have 730 acre feet available for you to use. At the end of this expansion, we move over to that far right-hand column. And on a base level, you'll more than double the amount of water available. You'll have 1,595 acre feet per year available.
In the ballpark, anticipated date for that number to come in is
April 2027.
okay.
And so I think that's the next slide I have, is just
Yeah.
kind of a picture on.
I just want to make sure I'm lining it up with the next slide. So,
Yes, sir. Is schedule. So if we can go to the next slide, we see the critical path. I mentioned those 3 different projects. The critical path really runs through the water treatment plant. That's got the bigger items in it, some of the longer lead items for that. Our board already authorized to move forward with the design of this to be reimbursed out of any bond funds we issued, recognizing the need to continue forward in order to get water delivered as quickly as possible. So that design's underway. The bidding of the water treatment plant, we would anticipate to start early in 2025 with a notice to proceed in spring of 25, and then a 2-year construction window to make that water available in the spring of 2027. Trying to get ahead of that summer 2027 time.
Gary, you're tracking this in the modeling? Okay.
So that's the last slide I have in terms of the expansion. Then from here on, it talks all the details of the financing and such. Are there any questions kind of about the expansion and what that entails or projects related to that? Okay. Well, let's get into the numbers then. I'm sorry, there's going to be a lot of numbers on these next few pages. I just don't know any other way to try and make it clear. Again, the financing we're asking you to approve tonight or this morning, sorry, I'm used to doing these at night, this morning, is first of all, a ban refinance. And so you might recall that the principal amount of that ban from last year that ARWA issued was 46 million. CRWA share at 30.89% is 14.21 million. And then that flows down to Green Valley's share of that is a little bit less than 4.9 million. Projected interest was 2 million, as we noted last year. Again, we've listed CRWA share, and then for Green Valley, that means about $212,000 is interest on that. So that's the first part that this SWIFT would take care of. We go to the next slide then. The next component is the expansion, and our engineers have estimated $90 million, and that includes everything from design through construction management, inspection, material testing, and construction itself. So this is the entirety of the program, estimated at $90 million to do those three different projects. CRWA share, again, at 30.89% is $27.8 million. And then Green Valley's share of that is about $9.6 million. So combining 1 and 2 together, that puts the total issuance at $138 million, Canyon Regional share at $42.63 million, and then Green Valley's at $14.7 million roughly. On the agenda today is the 42.63 number because as a customer of CRWA, you've got to be able to approve their amount. And so we've gone to each of those utility SUDs. They're in the agreement along with you to get their approval on that amount.
So after our approval, then it has to go to CRWA along with all of the other entities' approval before CRWA can vote on this.
No, sir. They actually approved it on the October 7th meeting. It still required the approval from each of the SUDs before we could move forward with it. So CRWA approved it on October 7th. The next step after this, you're actually my last sponsor meeting. Our board has to take action at it, and we've got our meeting scheduled for next Wednesday, October 30th. And so they would then approve it. But it requires approval from each of the entities prior to our board taking any action.
Thank you.
Sir. Okay, a couple more slides here. Then if we go to the next slide, a reminder on how the SWIFT financing works. The State Water Implementation Fund of Texas, the beauty of this fund is we're able to borrow at the state's credit rating, which is as high as you can get. And then on low interest loan terms, they offer subsidies below that rate. So we've used this fund a number of times so far, and it's worked out well. I've listed those rates over the last 4 times that we've done the issuance here, dating back to 2017, just so you can see what that looks like. We had a pretty good jump between 2020 and 2022. Big part of that was interest rates themselves just rose significantly in that period coming out of the pandemic. But the other part is the Water Development Board reduced the subsidy that's available. It used to be a 20% subsidy below their rate on a 30-year note. They reduced that to a 14% subsidy. So it's a little bit less attractive than it used to be. They were trying to make sure they had more funds coming in so that they can continue to loan out more money. So it was a little bit of a cash flow situation on their end that they decided to change that subsidy. So in 2022, when we last issued this, it was a 3.95%. We go to the next slide. We had put our budget together earlier this year, and what our board approved, which ultimately made its way into Canyon Regional Water Authority's budget, which I believe also then made its way into your current budget. So all these numbers tie together, was an estimated 3.99%. That was based on some earlier projections we had. I'm happy to tell you that we actually got the final numbers a little bit less than a week ago, and the actual percentage rate was a 3.48%. So quite a bit below what we had budgeted and below what we had issued in 2022. What that means for Green Valley is in 2025, we do an interest-only payment. And so Green Valley's share of that is about $331,000. And then the next 29 years, 2026 to 2054, is a principal and interest payments each year. And they're approximately level, but they bobble a little bit between $800,000 to $822,000. And so the total principal and interest at the end for Green Valley's share of this is $23.813 or $814 million.
Okay, real quick. So we approved our FY25 budget. Were we factoring this August payment into the equation? If not, then when we do our amendment mid-year, we got to factor that. Yeah. So just, I know you're tracking. So,
I will offer that. I don't know what the Green Valley's budget situation was. Our numbers were included in the Keener Regional Water Authority budget. So this is not an
Okay.
additional amount. This is already in their budgeted amount. So
that payment, okay. So then
Yeah, so if it's-
nix that.
If it's in the CRWA
Yeah.
budget,
yes,
we use their.
So they're already approving things in anticipation that we're gonna go in on those bills without even asking us first. Okay,
I'll add, I'm on the technical committee for Alliance and I'm in the board
we,
meetings.
so we blame you.
I've been, I have been, you know, briefing the board on these. I'm getting eyes from James. I I was not generally in favor of the bond anticipation note loan, but I did vote in favor of this project moving forward at our last board meeting, to get the engineers working on it. Based on our water availability that we have and our growth, the general direction from the board to me has been go find the water. And this is much lower cost. What was the overall, the whole program's phase one's budget, like 400 million or something?
right.
It master planned adding these structures. I think we added a second clear well based on GBRA's request, but we master planned most of this. So at the treatment plant site, stub outs are laid out for, you know, piping and electrical, and that's why the next phase that doubles our volume is lower total cost. So I will say I've been, you know,
Good.
agreeing with this as we've moved on for the last, you know, X number of months.
I just want to make sure that we're clear going forward in the future that CRWA articulates all the responsibilities that Green Valley is going to be subjected to so that we can roll that into our budget because, you know, reading this, you know, over the weekend, you know, when I saw that, I was like, I don't remember talking about this, you know, being approved from us or anything like that as far as we're already on the hook for it. We haven't been told we haven't voted for it. But CRWA now is billing us for it already in their rate structure to accommodate that expense. So I know Gage, you're on it. Nick, you guys are fine. I just, again,
And-
just
and
want to make sure
We've been on the hook
Yeah.
for this for a long time.
no, there's no getting
We've
out of
been
it.
committed to this
Yeah.
project because this brings us the fresh water that we
Right.
need to
No, and
back up
and
the
like
growth
Nick
we
said,
had.
the whole board's, you know, initiative is get the water, you know, right now, whatever we
Get the
can.
water at a good price.
It's a good price, but you know what I'm saying? It's just one of those things that if they're rolling into their expense, I just want to make sure, and thank you for communicating that they already factored that in. So now our bill, it all comes full circle and we don't have to worry about a separate additional bill. Because obviously we're trying to pinch pennies as best we can.
And
So,
John, that's part of why CRWA's budget went up. What was it, 20-point change this year from previous year? So a lot of that is.
so then when it comes to the accounting process, as far as this type of infrastructure and the line items that we're pulling from versus, is it, you know, from the rates? You know, stuff like that. But that's kind of where I want to make sure it's articulated in our, from CRWA's billables as to what's going to be coded on our end as far as impact fees, acquisition fees, and then for the ratepayer side, where it's coming out of them too. So anyways, I know you got it. We'll keep moving forward so we can get this
One more
going.
quick question, sir.
Yeah.
What's the projected date that our first payment is going to be due on this?
August 2025.
August 25?
That's interest only.
Yeah.
So,
I just want to make sure we got the
Yeah.
money.
yeah. Yeah, if it already went into CRWA's, you know, billable projections, then at that point, they factored that in, so then we should be fine right now. So,
I'd also like to offer, if by chance any or all of our sponsors had said, no, we're not going to move forward with it, then we would have done a budget amendment. To
Yeah.
reduce our budget, and that I would presume would flow through to each of the entities. We have to start our budget process in April, not knowing and trying to forecast what's going to happen. So
oh,
we've got to make some assumptions if we.
we
have
need
to-
that information a lot sooner.
we
Well,
could-
I think June for us, so that we can start doing the calculations, so that, you know, come July, August, we're already rolling with correct numbers, so appreciate the effort
Got to
behind
do
it.
some estimating and projecting what we think is going to happen. And if we're wrong, we've got to then come back and
Yeah.
amend it either, you know, hopefully down Never had to
hopefully.
do one up, so hopefully we won't have.
Okay.
that
Well, and just a left field question, if you may, that I don't even know if it's in consideration or possibility. The governor and the ledge keeps talking about additional monies for rural water. Is if we were able to secure rather large lump, or was there any way to incorporate that into, or you're letting bonds with the state? And so, yeah, the bonds are set, but I don't know if there's any other way if it is.
If we continue to monitor the different funding avenues that are open, if there becomes one that's significantly more advantageous, I believe our bonds open after a 10-year period, and then we could look at doing something at that point in time. So we have historically, 2022 is a little bit of an anomaly, a little bit higher rate. I don't know where interest rates are going to go over the next 5 to 10 years. If they get back below that point, then that may be interest. Some of those at a 2% interest rate, it's hard for me to imagine we're going to get down to that level
Think so.
anytime again.
Either
I would
Brit,
No,
Probably what I'd like to see.
I don't see that in the market, but okay.
I think
I think we're good.
Yeah, I think we're at
So-
the last slide then, because we already hit kind of our schedule moving forward. Our board has to take action next month, which is on the next slide. So the final slide I have then is we're asking you to approve a resolution, approving a resolution to let us issue the 2024 SWIFT issuance. So I think that's the next slide, if we can go to there. We've got to get all this documentation together, submit through the Water Development Board, the Attorney General's office, go through that process so that we can then close on the funds by December 2nd, which is just
The
ahead
interest
of
rate's
the Water Development.
3.48%.
Yes, sir, 3.48.
That
And the-
interest rate was the only thing that we didn't have at our last Alliance meeting that we got the final number for today, so.
That's right. And
I'll say that I've been through the process of this for, the past number of months at both Alliance and when we get a report at CRWA. It's a lot of money, but we're going to be acquiring water, and it's fairly quick turnaround on getting more water to us. The pipelines are sized correctly to receive it at Lake Dunlap. I believe this is the right thing to do.
Okay.
If
All
anybody
right,
else has
so-
no other questions, I will make a motion.
Okay.
I'll make a motion to approve Resolution 2024-10B, approving a resolution by the Board of Directors of the Alliance Regional Water Authority authorizing the issuance of contract revenue bonds in an aggregate principal amount not to exceed $42,630,000 for the Canyon Regional Water Authority in connection with the Regional Water Supply Contract Project and approve other related matters
At a rate of 3.48%.
at a rate of 3.48%.
Okay, I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Since we just said at a rate of 3.48%, if an act of God happens and that rate changes, does that invalidate what we're about to vote on?
the rate is set.
Okay,
The
okay,
rate's
that's
set,
fine.
yeah.
I just want to make sure. All right.
I'll second it.
Okay, I have a motion and a second. Last discussions, comments, concerns?
Jump on the.
Yeah, sorry.
Set, talking to-
When the rate was added into the motion, I wanted to make sure that was captured
Yeah,
appropriately. Jennifer, we want to
And
make sure
I mean-
we're capturing the true interest cost versus the net interest cost overall to Canyon Regional.
Right, they're just two different calculations. The number that Graham is quoting is the net interest cost. I believe the documents say the true interest cost. The net interest cost is actually higher at 348. The true interest cost is 343. So I'm not sure how you want to specify it or if you
Maybe
need
not
add
to
the rate
exceed?
to it.
So
I
not
think it would
to,
be best,
not to exceed the
yeah,
3.48.
that's fine.
Okay,
Yeah, that is actually lower.
okay.
So I'll amend my
I'll take
motion
lower.
to a not to exceed a 3.48.
Yeah, and we
Uh,
have those numbers, so that.
Appreciate the articulation, and if we can just, you're good. Thank you. If we can just make sure we record that in the minutes, not to exceed the 3.48. All right, so we have a motion. I have a second.
I'll re-second it.
There you go, reseconded. All right. Roll call vote, Mr. King?
Aye.
Berman?
Yes.
Ms. McDaniel?
Aye.
Aye. Mr. Hendricks? Bob?
Aye.
Mr.
Aye.
Cooper? Aye. The ayes have it. Motion passed. Thank y'all very much for your time.
Thank you for moving us up. in
You're good.
the agenda today.
Get back to
Appreciate it.
work, please. Thank you. All right, going back to the top of the order. Item E, hear updates on the following items from the GVSUD General Manager, staff, and committee chairs and take action as necessary. E1, employee recognition, Mr. Gage.
Okay, good morning, board. After that piece of business, it gives me the great pleasure to recognize a few people here that we get to do every month, and I'm happy to do it today. So if I could have David and Jordan and John and Eric come join me up here in front of the board. So this month, what we've been able to do over the course of a couple of months is really get into our warehouse and do considerable organization, install some security fencing, install some new shelving, to take care of our stuff. And this is the team that got it done. David Duff, John, Jordan, and Eric here did all of that. And I'd gladly invite the board members, if you got time, to cruise back and take a look at what we have. But the amount of security improvements that we've done, the amount of organization, that this team has done is impressive. And I wanted to recognize them in front of everyone today. And I got a couple of things for you guys, right? So here we go.
I'd like to point out, I don't even have a golden coin, okay? I'm kind of jealous.
Nick, you have to earn it.
Yeah.
Earn it, Nick.
8 years and you still have it. What's going on? That's awesome.
Thank you. Yeah, appreciate you. Please around.
Awesome. Thank y'all.
Okay, they can actually go back to work now, right? So.
Yes. Hope y'all enjoyed the break. Y'all have a good day. All right, thank you for that. We're going to E2, business and operations. Mr. Gage on to II and I.
Yeah, so for this one, I do have a memorandum in the packet for just general manager updates. I'll hit the highlights. We currently do have 52 employees on board right now. We do have one hiring action open. I've determined that we needed to add another construction inspector due to the amount of construction we have going on. So that is an open position, but we're right at 52 right now. Got some good news about our vehicles, surplus vehicles that the board voted to surplus several months ago. We got all those into auction, and we're doing quite well. We're probably, let's see, we're getting close to $30,000 in total for those vehicles. I'm going to come back to the board at a later date to further right size the fleet. Haven't determined what I want to do quite yet with that. But we have moved out. We have surplus those vehicles, and we have sold them through the government auction site. So that's good news. The next bullet there on the wastewater master plan, I do want to hit this one because we do have Garver as our professional services doing our overall wastewater master plan. But what we have is Green Valley is at the, we're kind of like the fork in the road between Cibolo and Schertz in terms of wastewater planning. And the two areas that we agreed to with those two cities as a part of our comprehensive agreement with those two cities. All of that master planning is going on right now. And so when I say we're at the Y in the road there, we're kind of in between. There's 3 different consulting firms doing this. Schertz is using LAN. We'll discuss that later in the agenda. We have Cibolo that is using Freeze and Nichols, and we're using Garver. What's interesting about this effort, it has to be very well coordinated because Garver has to work with 2 different consulting engineers on a different time horizon. So we're going to what's going to happen, and Travis is going to lead us through the master planning effort. We're basically going to have to work this master plan a little different than we wanted to. We're going to work it from the west to the east, so to speak, so we can address the concerns for Schertz and Cibolo and make sure that we get the capacities and the lines that was agreed to with those 2 cities. So the reason why I'm briefing the board on this right now, and so everyone knows, we're in intense coordination with both cities, and our commitment is to do that. We're having regular meetings with Cibolo. We've already got our next one scheduled coming up, and we'll do something similar with Schertz. But the city of Schertz just approved their consulting contract their consulting engineer last week. So we got to get on rhythm with them, but we're already on rhythm with Cibolo. So that's good. Just want to highlight that to you all. The last point is a master plan. So the board approved me to move out with the master plan, which I think is going to be a great effort. That kicks off
Strategic
next
plan.
week. I'm sorry, strategic plan. Thank you very much. We have so much planning to do, right? So the strategic plan kicks off next week, and we have our first meeting with those at the staff level, and we're getting that underway. And that's exactly what we need to do. And I appreciate the board doing that. But we're not waiting. We're starting next week. So I mean, I just wanted to let the board know that. And pending any questions, that's really my memorandum, and I can go through. I think the next agenda item's the operations report if you're ready for that.
I commend you. These reports are fantastic, and the updates that you give all of the board are greatly appreciated. Thank you. On the Cibolo wastewater project, do you have a target date that we'll start feeding material to them?
I don't. Right now, I don't have a target date on that. When we're going to start using that capacity, no. I mean, it's tied up in when the plant's ready to receive it, and then when the development actually goes in down there and the trunk lines, et cetera. But the master planning is really going to be focused on the trunk lines to Woman-Hollering Creek, and then from Woman-Hollering Creek to the capacity in the actual plant with CCMA. So that's the Rubik's Cube we have to figure out is the best place to put those lines. But I don't have a date for you, no, sir.
We were trying to not duplicate work between the three entities, so coordinate everything to, minimize the cost between everybody. And so we're all not doing double, overlapping work. And we aligned our horizons to match the other two to where we're all consistent. And I reached out to Garver, and it does not change their timeline. So we'll still be on the same timeline.
Awesome. Good to know.
And one last point on that, I'm making clear to the cities that we're not competitors, right? We are jointly working together every step of the way. And Travis has got that guidance, and he's doing great. So no issues there.
Keep it up. Thank y'all for last meeting approving that strategic plan initiative to get it going. This company hasn't had one, and it is overdue to get one going. So thank y'all for doing that in my absence. Let's go to operations.
So on operations report, I won't cover all parts here. It's there, but I will drill in on the first page of the ops report at the bottom. We are still tracking our daily flow through the Santa Clara treatment plant. We're at 0.09 against the 0.25 capacity. So we're at 36% of our capacity there at Santa Clara. I think Travis will probably have some updates on where we're at with the design for that, but that's going very well for the expansion design. The other thing I think I would highlight is the number of meters in the ground at the bottom of page 2. So we're up to 18,292. We're still putting a lot of meters in the ground, for new development, and that's coming along quite well. But that's staying exactly where we thought we were in growth, and I'll just keep highlighting that to the board. We set 98 meters just in the month of September, so that's a pretty big month for us. And I think that's all that bears highlighting. The rest is there in the report. One last thing, the fleet report is back in the board agenda at the end of the operations report. And you'll down at the bottom of that report, there's the highlighted vehicles that you approved the surplus, and we're in the process of selling. I wanted to point out that the figures that we have that we're selling those vehicles for have now gone up. As the time of the board packet, that was where we were when we published the packet last week, but it's higher than it is there. But pending any questions for the ops report.
No, I appreciate all the detailed information in it.
Sir, are all of the meter changeouts done?
No, sir. No, sir, they're not. With the number of meter changeouts we do, I want to say that we talked about last time is somewhere in the figure of 2,000 to change out, and that's not done yet. I mean, we're still working on them considerably, but the figures on the ops report is the new meters going in the ground.
New meters only, not change.
New meters only, not change outs. Yes, sir.
So
I can give you that figure. I mean, if y'all would like to get that
No, I know
figure,
I've talked about it before, and I apologize for not remembering the target date on that.
Yeah.
Considering the new meter sets that you had this month, is this a trend that we need to account for in budgeting?
Yes, sir, we have. So in our 25 budget, the inventory of meters, we accounted for that for the purchase of those meters. So it is in the budget. It was about a $1.2 million outlay, I believe, for the meters. I think I'm in the ballpark. So yeah. Yeah, that's good. My backup team over there has got it.
No, and there's, two cases of meters, the new houses, new construction, and then you got the old meters that are being replaced with the new meters, which for the record, if the old meters are not working properly, those people are probably getting a discount. So when new meters go in, it's gonna read correctly. So it's not like we're trying to take more money from them. It's just they've been receiving a discount and we haven't been collecting on that.
Get any feedback from that previously when we started changing out the meters to ones that were hanging a little bit and not
What?
calculating? We were getting some negative feedback. Are we getting any comments really? No? Okay.
They don't want to back charge for all the water that they technically owe, just saying.
I would say, I don't know, I'll make a guess, right? I mean, so every month you do have a number of meters that have a tendency to go bad, a hung meter or whatever. So Kim's team monitors that and they look at the billing. So if we start having very high usage or low usage, we look at those and then we send a technician out to go to see what the problem is. And it also happens another way. Sometimes customers actually request, and Kim's going to help me out here.
Is this on? Can you hear it?
It's not on. Flip the switch.
Okay, so it looks like last month in September, we changed out 99 meters and only one of those was hung. So we don't really see a whole lot of hung meters, which is good. We're changing them out so that they can be radio read and be ready for our AMI. So we are checking our zero reads. We haven't really found a lot of zero reads that were not calculating correctly. So the margin of our hung meters is really low, which is good for us.
Good. Okay. But we do have, an initiative that's cycling out the old ones for new ones. So that
Absolutely.
it's easier with AMI and
Yes.
the guys. Okay.
And that 2,000 that he's talking about are the ones that we need to get to radio read so that we can be AMI ready for them.
Right. So if possible, if y'all can do a kind of calculated timeline of when we do replace them so that the whole system is up to par, if we can kind of just like ballpark date.
We can. I can get you that because it goes hand in hand with the AMI, with the installation of AMI. And so that project's moving. I mean, we're starting to get some of the equipment in right now already to do the AMI, which is the remote read,
Mhm.
better than the radio read. So we can do that. We'll get you a projected timeline.
Just a side question too, and I'm sure y'all have the answer to this. I think I may have touched on it a couple of meetings before. I'm sure y'all are watching the timeline from order to delivery, and it depends on the size of the meters, correctly?
Yes, sir, we are. So we pay really close attention to it, right? I mean, because it depends on the lead time of the meters.
Right.
And we do pay very close attention to that. And what we've done with the amount of stock that we know is in-house, we're not going to spend $1 million worth of meters like this month. We're paying attention to the stockage level, and we're going to buy meters at the appropriate time, but while factoring in the delivery time, if that makes
Sure,
sense.
Nick and I remember the backlog and during the COVID time period, it was
Yeah.
like, wasn't it over a year on some? It's tremendous, yeah.
It's about
Okay,
9
thank you.
Okay. All right.
Give her the thing.
I was told that Core and Main has plenty of meters ready to purchase right now, but we are going to wait until we get down to 1,000 in our
Inventory.
inventory before we order more. But the wait time is definitely less now.
That's interesting, right? It's a conversation we had in the investment committee yesterday about cash flow. And so, just because Core and Main has the meters available and we're used to during the COVID years that nothing was available and you had to buy when it was available, we're not doing that practice anymore. So we're essentially setting a stockage level and then ordering unless we see that the delivery time is such that we have to order more sooner. But we're being a little bit more smarter because I don't want to crunch cash flow all in the first quarter of the year, based off of, I don't know, like every time there's a disaster, you go buy toilet paper, right? We're not going to try to do that. We're going to try to be rational and spend our money at the appropriate time.
Awesome. Appreciate it. Okay, let's go to E3, CRWA Board of Trustees post-meeting updates. Mr. Cooper and Mr. Sherman.
I'll lead off. We had a drought report. earlier in this year, we'd gotten some rains above Canyon Lake where the level had ticked up, but it has gone back down again. So we were in stage 3 restriction over there. I think that shouldn't come as a surprise to anyone. At the Lake Dunlap facility, there's a problem with our strainers tied to the filters. CRWA has a project in process to correct that, a maintenance project, and that should be target completion date of May of 2025. So that's good news. The Wells Ranch 3 project, during our discussion there was discussion of generators being added to the Wells Ranch 3 project. We don't have generators at the wells, so we're adding some generators into that. The overall project cost is estimated at $268,000, but that will produce 14,500 acre foot of water, which shakes out to $18,500 per acre foot. For reference, that is still in the planning phases. We're still participating in that at this point, but the overall Wells Ranch 3 project is down the road a ways. We carved out that smaller 920 acre foot that we can get now for much lower, and that's in process. Phil and I have been talking about that, but we're working on that. Under the legal and legislative matters, our attorneys have been reviewing our contracts are garbage. There's no other way to say it. They're just terrible contracts. So everything moving forward, we're trying to rewrite the contracts when everyone's willing to participate in them. So the Wells Ranch 3 project, they're working on memorializing who's participating at what percentage, at what volume of water. And we're going to rewrite a contract, get a good document together, and then have everyone approve that. Under general business, we had ARWA gave us a very similar presentation. The Canyon Regional Board approved it unanimously. Mr. Moore owed me the update on the segment E2 phase. So we got that, and we should be receiving water on Monday, apparently. Reimbursement of funds paid by CRWA. 4 of the member entities owe money to CRWA. This is something we've discussed previously. We memorialized that and agreed to our repayment schedule and dollar amount. I can't recall I didn't put in my notes. Gage, can you put those figures?
It was $30,000 a month for 360 a year until we satisfy the 1.14.
So that's the amount that Green Valley is going to pay. It was a surprise to Steve and I, about 6-8 months ago, that there was a debt that we have not been paying that was a decade old. So no interest, just the principal amount we're going to be repaying. And then we settled on an agreement with Nanostone. So CRWA had installed Nanostone filters some years ago, and they never operated correctly. We've settled on an agreement with Nanostone, and we're going to move forward with that agreement.
Is there any costs on our end?
Yes, I won't get into the details.
Thank you,
of it.
Mr. Cooper.
In my notes. Yeah, I was trying to look for the words.
Push
In
him
my
over the
notes,
ledge.
I've written down, it's not the perfect deal, but it's a deal, and it's going to get us across the finish line to where we can expand. It's not finalized yet, so I don't want to discuss too much details. It's not the perfect deal. There are some costs, but Nanostone is participating in a big way. So,
Are we anticipating, us to absorb any of that cost directly
the
that
cost
we need to
that
factor
Green
in?
Valley will pay, some work has to be done at the Lake Dunlap facility. We're also expanding the scope of that work to capture some other things. We have a volume of raw water availability off of the lake that we're not treating because the plant doesn't have treatment capacity. I've raised my hand at CRWA and say, hey, when we design this expansion, let's capture that as well. So we are participating in some of the costs tied to Nanostone, but we're also be looking to expand our water inventory coming out of Lake Dunlap.
So ballpark, few hundred thousand, or are we talking into the millions?
The overall expansion.
No,
of
no,
the
like
lake-
our direct portion of the expense of the settlement. Are we contributing for the settlement of any way into the hundreds of thousands or?
Well, there's
certainly
several
not very-
portions to the resolution. The
Yeah.
Nanostone settlement was just one piece.
Right.
The other piece is there are more banks of filters that had to be added, and there had to be some physical site work to be able to house those
Okay.
Right.
new.
I can't
racks.
quote you a figure, but I can get that for you.
Okay, please.
There is going to be an expense. It shouldn't be exorbitant, but we've got to get those nanostones working as efficiently as possible, as quickly as possible.
Okay.
And let me say publicly, Nanostone has done a great job at working with us. They've at no point thrown their hands up and told us to go pound sand. So there were some equipment issues that they worked diligently with CRWA staff to resolve.
Got it. Anything else that you would want to contribute?
Oh, yeah, I'm sorry. I need to let everybody know I was not in attendance. I was in Las Vegas watching the Tropicana implode.
But in Mr. Cooper's defense, we changed the meeting date because our normal meeting would have been on Columbus Day, and we didn't want to have staff come in on
A
a
holiday.
staff holiday, so we moved it up a week. So Steve wasn't just laying out,
Okay.
not going to the meeting. It was a change.
Thanks for that,
Okay.
Nick.
Okay, thank y'all for that.
I was there all week.
E4, Board of Managers, post-meeting updates, Mr. Gage.
So for the board of managers, I did put a memo in the packet. So Nick covered, most of it. The one additional thing that I'll say that's on my memo is they came out with a new operations report over there that's actually quite useful. And what it shows us is we have about 7,500, acre feet total through CRWA. We've used thus far this year where we're sitting about 4,118 of that. So we still got a good piece of water, that's sitting out there in terms of capacity with our leased water, through CRWA. So it's a much better report. You can see where you are during the year. And then I'm actively working with some of the other board of managers to do some of the things Nick is talking about. We've got to improve our operational efficiency at CRWA, and we're starting to build some consensus amongst the board of managers to start sitting down and working on that. So that's about it from that report.
Appreciate you pushing that. Okay, thanks for that update. ARWA, Mr. Sherman.
ARWA, we moved our meeting to after Green Valley's meeting. We have it next week, so there was no meeting in between our last board meeting.
Got it. Thank you. All right, E6, Public Relations, Community Outreach Update, Ms. Ford.
Members, went ahead and gave you guys a memo. We're basically going to be, contributing to the Christmas parades this year. We're going to be in Schertz, Cibolo, and Seguin. Marion hasn't announced yet that they're doing a 2024, so that's why we're not going to be there. But are there any questions on the events we're participating in?
No, have we got the float and participants already signed up, ready to go?
Already signed up and approved by every city.
Awesome, cool.
And are we getting, still getting staff interest in going riding in the float I watch. The Cibolo
Absolutely.
Parade. and
Yeah, we hope that some
looks
of y'all will join us on the float, but that will depend on how many staff volunteers we have. We have a lot of people very interested in being there, especially with their kids. So Yeah.
Staff first, we're in the peanut gallery for that one, watching and, clapping for y'all.
and voting, hopefully.
And what could possibly be the penalty for throwing candy when, even if the official rules say not to? What?
I mean,
I don't feel like
maybe I
finding
shouldn't
out,
ask that
but
question.
we'll absorb the penalty. I mean, I think that's a nice thing to do.
I don't
as
think so.
opposed to-
no, some of the
maybe-
parades have
maybe,
strict rules about it.
Yeah.
Maybe have some folks.
Tootsie Rolls off of our poop pumper was very appropriate when I did it. And nobody complained. There wasn't a single child that did not want the
Ashley,
Tootsie
let's
Rolls I
have
was
some
throwing off the
people
poop
with
machine.
5-gallon buckets of candy handing out and not maybe throwing. That
Absolutely.
bypasses the.
Yeah, that's what I was going to
Okay.
suggest is this year, maybe we should use, or the staff should use something other than the pump and haul truck.
Yeah,
With the
I think,
connotation.
Yeah,
that-
this year we'll be doing a truck with a float being hauled on one of our trailers.
Awesome. Can't wait to see it. Thank y'all so
Absolutely.
much for y'all's participation in it. Awesome. Thank you. Now we're gonna
Thank
go
you.
to E7.
Real quick, John,
Go.
Ashley, I've
Yes.
got a recommendation only. The conversation came up recently about our monies that we budgeted to support our community
Mhm.
and how we spend so little of that budget. Can we, would it be a possibility that in January or coming into the end of the year, that we can put notification out through social media or something that we're accepting applications for charitable organizations?
Yeah, absolutely.
I think Steve Cooper's opinion, we need to do a better job at supporting our community. We budgeted the money, they just don't know it's there. How's
Right.
that?
No
Oh,
problem. We could definitely do that. Would you like me to start doing a quarterly report like the investment committee?
I'll
We can
leave
meet
it
with
to the president,
no,
and
we-
Mr. Gage.
So
to the
we haven't
board.
had a lot of public relations meetings lately. We've obviously this past year has been a lot of cleanup. So
I get it.
that is something I'm trying to get back on the ball on doing with the committee. But you're right, the notification to the public is needed. And I mean, we've been trying to advocate as best we can with
Sure.
whatever we come across and know about to chip in and help out. But I think this year we've talked about doing a science fair, water project here. So we have our yearly calendar planner meeting next week during Halloween of all days. So we're going to kind of map out the whole year's obligations and, public relations wise, what can we throw in there to get more involvement from, the kids and whatnot. So
Absolutely. And John, I think you were part of the conversation. We recently had an event for FFA for Cibolo and shirts. And I was shocked to find out what the financial responsibilities of those organizations are before they even have a meeting or their ability to have a meeting. They could use our help and support, and they are incredibly gracious and thankful for any monies that they get. So
Yeah.
And Steve and I were at that, barbecue sale that the Cibolo Creek FFA had, and I did get contact information for some leadership, and I'm gonna get them in the scholarship committee.
Cool. Awesome. Thank y'all very much for that. Going to E7 District Engineer update, Mr. Travis.
Morning, everybody. I would like to start off by saying my 6-year-old daughter is more than thrilled to be in the parade on our float.
Thank you for your participation.
The first thing I wanted to point out in my update was one of the I shouldn't say an issue, but one of the first things I noticed when starting here was that we were not tracking projects and kind of communicating through departments in what I would think would be an efficient way. So I started out by implementing a project numbering system to where we would all kind of speak the same language. And so kind of make us more efficient and not looking around for different documents. Other than that, we've got 89 projects total right now. 38 of them are in design, 45 of them are in construction, and 6 of them are in closeout. A couple of the high notes on that: Santa Clara 0.5 expansion is at 90% design review, and that's on my desk right now and our staff. And we're pushing as hard as we can to get those comments out by the end of this week, and looking to bid on the advertise for bid on the 6th of November. And so,
And we're still projected to hit our date of July of next year, August of next year to go live with it.
yes, I'll ask Gary for backup on that, but yes.
Yep. We're still on plan. Okay,
Yeah.
awesome.
And as Phil mentioned, we kind of started off our master planning with Garver, wastewater master planning, and we will be having our second workshop early next month regarding population projections and how that will affect our master planning. So far, that's been going great, along with the coordination with the 2 other entities 3 other entities we have to coordinate with. So
Okay.
that's all I've got. If you guys got any
If you have any
feel
questions?
free.
yeah, the Cibolo Tolly Road project, I'm very happy to see that's going into design phase. Have we been given a timeline by Cibolo on what that project is hoping to be completed?
I have not. One of the things when we met with Cibolo, they wanted to have access to our easements to pothole and locate our line on that project, because I don't know if we didn't have adequate as-built, and so they're in the early stages of design on that. If they're still going in potholing, which we did grant them access to do that, and we made sure that one of the things, if they were going to have access to our easement, they were to notify the landowners of that and have at least 2 weeks notice, I think, before they entered the property. That one's very early in
That
design.
this
but I'll-
project is a long time coming. I mean, and it's not our fault. I'm not trying to own the responsibility, but I want to make sure that we're doing everything we can to support Cibolo to get this done.
Just for informational too, how far off of the edge of the roadbed is our easement? It's like in some areas, like where I'm at, it's like 20 or 30 feet off the roadbed.
It's case by case.
Yeah.
There's no specific. I think for the most part, from what I've seen since I've been here, is we're trying to get as close to the property line as possible. But you know, depending on trees and other
Sure.
aspects, it may weave around, you know, certain things.
I'm on several of the community boards around here, and there was very recently an issue with people walking onto easements of private property, and the property owners got extremely upset. From what I saw, I believe a weapon was drawn. So can we please, please, please reiterate to the city and even to our own people, if we're going to use the easements, the property owners really need to know. We need to do our best, because it was, I don't know if it was Marion Chat, because all sorts of crazy stuff happens out here, but it was one of the locals. They were upset, and there was a firearm about to come out before police actually got out there. So I don't know if that was us. I don't know if it was Cibolo, but we do need to make sure the property owners are fully aware that it is an easement. Unfortunately, it's not technically your private property at that point. So
We'll make sure on our end that we give proper notification. Brud and his team, our right of way guys, are great at that. And then as for Cibolo, I can say their guys were on top of making sure they coordinated with the landowners. They even reached out to us. They reached out to me to let me know that they were going to start too. So
I'll say on it, just one comment on that. Our coordination with Cibolo is going very well. I mean, so when we first sat down with them, Tolly Road was one of the topics we talked about. And city manager over there, Mr. Reed, asked us, to provide, the access to the easements. Well, within a week, we gave them a formal memo saying you can have access to the following easements. And now we're coordinating directly with the director of public works over there to do that. So we're working very well together, and I think it's very important, because the better we work together now, the better we have a wastewater master plan, the better we use the capacities we got, and the treatment plants, it all ties together. So it was good work.
Appreciate the effort behind it. Thank you very much, Travis. All right, what time is it right now? 10:16. Do you want to still keep going or take a break? Yeah. All right, we'll do 5 minutes. We'll take a recess. Time is 10:17. We'll come back at 10:23. All right, we're gonna call the meeting back to order. Bob, Steve. We're gonna get ready. It's 10:23. We're gonna open the meeting back to order. Mr. Cooper. There you go. Thank y'all. I know it's all kinds of fun right now. All right, time is 10:23. We're coming back to open session from the recess that we just took. We're going to item F. Consideration and possible action related to the Green Valley SUD operations policy, and take action as necessary. Mr. Gage.
Okay, so I am very excited, to present to the board the operations policy today. We have a relatively long board meeting today, so I won't go into great detail on the operations policy, but I'll give you a bit of background. So the operation policy that we currently have is relatively outdated, with some items in it that needed to be fixed for years, past years, and a little bit convoluted in how we dealt with certain situations. Earlier this year, prior to me joining Green Valley, we did initiate a agreement with NewGen Strategies to do what's called a rate order, and where they looked at all the rates across the board, compared our other rates, and I don't mean rates like water rates, I mean rates like fees for, bounce checks, late payments, trip charges, that sort of thing. And their recommendation in that was to create something was called a rate order that would be published on an annual basis that would include those rates. Well, the staff struggled with that. And we spent quite a bit of time trying to work our way through that. And essentially what the rate order did was take every single policy that Green Valley has and combined it into one policy. And as you can imagine, as we tried to do that, it made it quite cumbersome. because the board has approved relatively recent policies, and you would essentially be reapproving them again. And we didn't think it didn't function well for us, and it diluted the document for what its intended purpose is, to give us our rules and regulations and our operations policy for how we deal with our customers and what fees that we charge, right, for that. So this operations policy, we went back and said, okay, fine, this will not work for Green Valley. We took the work that NewGen did in terms of the comparison analysis of the fees, such like a return check fee, to make sure that we're in line, with other SUDs in accordance with that. So that study didn't go completely out the window, but the idea of changing us only to a rate order, we did send that out the window because it just didn't work for us operationally, so we didn't. So what we have together now is an operations policy that's quite a bit, shorter. It's abbreviated in some cases, but it's clearer in some cases, and just cleans things up. So the parts that I would like to highlight to you is really in section 5 of the policy, if you're following along. What it really defines in section 5 is the types of agreements we have. It's called our rules and regulations. And in section 5, as soon as I get there, it talks about excuse me, let me find the right page. Okay, it's section 5, service rules and regulations. What this does, we really streamlined our service agreements, right? So Green Valley now has 2 service agreements. You have a standard service agreement and you have a non-standard service agreement. We've had this in the past, but we didn't define the difference between just you're a new resident showing up at your house, you just bought the house, the meter's already there. You're merely just transitioning or transferring the account into your name, the meter already exists. But there's also instances, particularly out in the ETJs or in the county area itself, where we have a water line that runs in front of a piece of property. Someone wants to add a meter to an existing line. Well, that's still a standard service agreement, but the procedures are a little bit different to get that. And then, of course, you have your non-standard service agreements is what's traditionally reserved for developments. Somebody that's going to come in and install, multiple meters that requires multiple changes to infrastructure, et cetera. So that's all laid out in there. Really streamlines and cleans that process up. The other part that I want to highlight is in section 7 of the document. And this is our actual fee schedule all in one place. So section 7.1 or figure 7.1 is the actual fees that have already been approved by the board that are going into effect this month on the 19th of October. That's already uploaded into our system. So that will be in there every year is what the approved fees are. So it's in one document. And then the last page is the ones that has some changes in fees, and I'll highlight a couple of those. So now, yes, sir. Kevin. Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, we just need that
that's what he's
comment right
talking
there,
about,
yeah.
and he
Yeah.
pointed out to me. We'll correct it.
Yeah,
when
no,
we
other than
publish.
that, I didn't see anything else that was, I guess, significant. But no, you're good.
Yeah.
Just wanted to make sure.
So thanks for pointing that out. But and I'd like to say it's 100% error free, but it's a lot of words. But
Almost there.
but anyway, we'll get that one corrected.
Okay.
But on the summary of fees table, this is one change for the board's consideration. We have very first of that table, it says application fee, $200. That application fee is for anyone who is applying for a standard agreement or a non-standard agreement. That does not apply for if the meter is already in the ground. So if the meter is already in the ground, we're not charging an application fee. But if we have to go do work, i.e. process an application, do a service review, figure out, what the costs are for installing a meter, or if we're having to do a feasibility study or whatnot, that takes processing time. So we'll recoup that with just a one-time non-refundable application fee. So that's new. The second one there is a feasibility study fee. We've increased that from $2,500 to $3,000, and that's just to ensure that that we are whole. In fact, as we have different engineer firms do feasibility studies, that's required there. The third bullet, I want to highlight this one because it is not a change. We did not increase the deposit for a standard resident who is transitioning their meter from someone's name to another. Although we did add an application fee for someone who wants to add a meter or a non-standard agreement, we decided it was best to leave the $150. What that does, if you take the base rate time 3 months for a 5/8 meter, it's about $150. And so that's refunded to the customer. If they close the account and there's no balance in the account, they will get that $150 back. But we saw no need to try to increase a fee on our customers on a deposit because we're just going to give it back to them. And it serves its purpose by ensuring we're made whole in case something happens, they leave without paying the bill. Everything else doesn't really require any highlighting there. The installation fees for meters. Oh, I'm sorry. Did you have a question? Oh, wait.
Well, okay.
Yeah.
Can you look at the return check fee of $35?
Yeah.
I-
So what? Yeah.
No, I believe Texas has a cap at 30. That's why I bring it up.
Oh, did you?
Yeah.
We will go back and check that. That $35 fee was what was recommended from when they did the rate study, and it's in comparison to other SUDs. But I'll go check to make sure.
3.5.06. That's the code. It's 3.5.06.
Is it? Okay. We'll check that, and we could certainly amend that. Not a problem. We'll make a note of that one. Also in here, I would tell you the water acquisition fee is now the amount that the board, approved last week. And a matter of fact, on this agenda, we're going to ask the board to approve the resolution just to get that administratively complete. The sewer kayak fees are also updated on there. However, the impact fee is not quite up to the standard that was approved by the board because we're still pending TCEQ approval. So that's the old impact fee, but it has a note. It will go up to $74.23 upon TCEQ approval. And that still hasn't happened yet. We do expect it probably in, I'd say, second quarter.
Is it January, that second quarter?
For the impact fee, you
No,
voted on
for-
that?
Yeah, impact fee,
Yeah.
as far as that rolling out.
Yeah, so I think you reported.
I want to say it was January. as
You
far
voted
as
on
they
that
go
back in
live.
July. We submitted the documents to TCEQ, and we're just waiting for them to approve it. We estimate it could be in I would say second quarter. We don't know when they're going to take action, but
But once they approve it,
then it goes
when do
into
we go
effect.
live? Is there a notice?
It
that we
goes into
gotta put
effect
out?
once it's approved.
Okay. So once they bless off, we go live literally the
That's
next
right.
day or something like that.
And that's why we had the note in there under impact fee.
Just to further clarify, the TCQ, when it preliminarily approves the impact fee, they're going to require us to publish notice. And so that
Right.
covers our notice requirements.
Okay, so as long as the notice requirements blessed off and we're not
As part of
breaking
the
any laws,
TCQ
then.
process to issue notice, they actually give us the notice.
Mhm. And then the official
us to go
date,
Publish it.
but they will also direct us as far as the official date, we can actually start charging at that rate.
Correct.
Okay.
And the way that works is unless there's a protest that the commissioners determine is legitimate enough
Mhm.
to go to a contested case hearing, it gets approved administratively by the executive director of the TCQ.
Perfect. Okay,
Yeah.
thank you very much.
But we accounted for that by putting the note in there that saying, hey, it will go up as soon as it's approved by TCQ. And other than that there is nothing really exceptional I think I need to point out there. Oh, one other thing I do need to point out there. I address CCN transfers in this operation policy. And what I've done with CCN transfers is I've not set a particular dollar figure for each one of those things because CCN transfers are completely in the discretion of the board to agree, to transfer the CCN based on the conditions and proposal that we work out with whoever's asking to transfer the CCN. So we're a little bit silent on that. And what it gives us is the ability to assess the value of what we're dealing with and then make an appropriate agreement on a case-by-case basis. So I think sometime in the past, we would use a set dollar figure per acreage. Well, that really doesn't make sense in all cases. And so what the operation policy does, it gives the board discretion to set, a value that makes Green Valley whole or compensates us for the loss of that CCN. And do you have a
And to
question?
that note, real quick, so normally we take those into executive session when it comes to releases based on contractual obligations and dollar amounts. But for the record, so the public understands, when we value the dollars per acreage, in certain cases of property within our CCN, there's, in our opinion, would be active, high market value properties. And then there's some that are dead that we don't want to serve and don't have interest in serving because it's going to cost us more in engineering and,
Mr. Frias,
fees.
I agree with what you're saying.
Yeah.
I think more importantly than how valuable the underlying property is,
Right.
is how feasible it is for us to provide economic service to that property.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So that's our better articulation of it. But I want to make sure the public, for record, understands our thought process in determining these things, that we're not over there just giving away the farm, but also the engineering costs and the fees associated with that. In the past, I know we haven't been really made whole on a few things, and now we're correcting all those issues. So just one for the whole board and staff, when we do get these things presented to us, please make sure we have a solid number of expenses that are going to go into that before we get pitched the baseline expense report on that transfer. And then we'll have that conversation as to the value of what we feel is appropriate.
And we always have to keep in mind that CCN transfers are not haphazard.
Right.
That it has to go through the approval process, and this board has to give final approval whether or not a transfer is to occur.
Correct. So
Right. And
again,
that's how the operations policy
I want
lays
to
it
make
out.
sure everybody's aware, because it's not one of those things that we don't take lightly. So
Well, and don't those all, correct me if I'm wrong, but don't those go through approval by TCEQ also?
I think
Wow.
the PUC would
PUC,
be the
yeah,
one
I'm sorry.
dealing with it.
Yeah, yes, any change in your CCN, whether it's by an agreement between providers to exchange or whether it's a release, there's a process. Process is a little more cumbersome for the transfers, and generally Gary or one of your consulting engineers handles when it's has to get involved, and so we need to make sure we cover expenses whenever it involves a transfer and coordinate.
That was my thought, was there some administrative or legal costs incurred by doing that? And the answer is yes.
Well, as long as, Shan, Gary, y'all can present to Gage kind of y'all's cost estimates on those and be fair about it, please. Thank y'all. Appreciate it. We'll keep on
Mr.
going.
Cooper's point
Yeah.
is on point, right? It's a deliberate process when
Yeah.
we decide to do this, and the cost associated and all that's figured into it. So that's exactly right.
You ready for a motion?
Yep.
I'd like to make a motion that we adopt the new operations policy as presented.
Second.
Okay, I have a motion and a second.
Weren't we making some changes? So it's not as
Well, it's to
presented?
include
As
the,
presented,
as presented with the comments made. So is there any other last minute discussions? No, we're good. Mr. King started off.
Aye.
Mr. Sherman?
Yes.
Ms.
Aye.
McNeil? Aye. Mr. Hick? Hendricks?
Aye.
Thank you. The ayes have it. All right, so that's adopted. Thank you for that. We'll go to item G, consideration and possible action related to the Green Valley capitalization policy and take action as necessary. Sorry. Gina, hello. Welcome to the party.
She's
He loves public speaking.
She's gonna do it.
He loves it more than I do.
Kill it.
We just previously didn't have this documented, so I wanted to make everybody aware so we know what our thresholds are and what accounts we're going to be using and how we're going to be handling.
Home run. There you go. And you're done. Awesome. Well, does anybody have any questions for Gina? Make them long, make them hard.
In general, this is not my, not my wheelhouse here, but this is yours. And so you're happy with the document. Are there any changes? I mean, probably you're going to say no because you've created this, but.
I did run it by our auditor and he's in agreement that what we have here is good going forward.
Thank you so much for doing this. All right, with that, I'll take a motion.
I'll make a motion that we approve the Green Valley capitalization policy.
Second.
Okay, I have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Ayes have it. Going to item H, consideration and possible action related to resolution number 2024-10A, a resolution of the Board of Directors of Green Valley Special Utility District approving the water acquisition fee assessment and resulting water acquisition fee amount.
I'll take this
Dan?
one. This is just ratifying the decision of the board at last month's meeting. And so in order to make an increase in rates like this, it's appropriate to have a formal resolution. So I drafted one up for your consideration.
Thank you very much. Do I have a motion or questions?
And so this is just paperwork to clean up.
Yep.
Okay.
Correct.
I would say, in the future, when we do this, we'll have the resolution at the same time. But if we have to produce a resolution afterwards, I think we can add that to the consent agenda.
That's true too.
Quite possibly. So we don't have to action it separately every time. This time, we should have done something differently, but we didn't. So,
Okay.
yes, sir.
I'll make a motion that we approve resolution number 2024-10A, a resolution of the Board of Directors of Green Valley Special Utility District approving the water acquisition fee assessment and resulting water acquisition fee amount.
Second.
Okay, I have a motion and a second. Mr. King?
Aye.
Mr. Sherman?
Aye.
Ms. McDaniel?
Aye.
Aye. Mr. Hendricks? Bob?
Aye.
And Mr. Cooper?
Aye.
Ayes have it. All right, thank you for that. We just got done doing I. Going to J. Consider the agreement with New Braunfels Utility for transfer of approximately 8 acres of water CCN service area from Green Valley SUD to NBU.
I'll take this one. This is something that was approved by the board way back in September of last year. And it took a while to get through the red tape over at New Braunfels Utilities, and it finally came up in early summer, and their attorney sent over an agreement, which I revised, and we finally have it in place. And so you should have an agreement for consideration in your package. It's a no dollar deal. But they are covering, the developer is covering all of our costs associated with that.
I'm just asking informational questions. I'm not going to sharpshoot, I promise. So as Mr. Cooper brought up before, this is an example of a CCN transfer and approximately what we could expect for, I guess, an approximate timeline. We're looking at about a year.
I think this is probably slower than it should have been. And I don't want to speak too much publicly about
That's
the
fine.
reason.
I
but-
just wanted like a general,
Yeah.
so in the future, it's not something that happens like that. We got some, okay.
No, I mean, once the board approves an agreement officially, it should be resolved within 5 to 6 months at the PUC, if it's submitted correctly. But the Public Utility Commission of late has I think maybe perhaps a mandate to kick these things down the road whenever possible. I don't know the reasoning, but I haven't seen one sail through cleanly in 2 years now.
Thank you.
And I know on the agenda it had 8 acres, but on the packet it had 7.453.
There are 2 tracks together, and so if you there's a 7.4 acre, then another acre, and so it should be it's about 8.5.
8.453. Okay. As I know in the past, you've made sure we articulated the acreage correctly.
Yeah, and I think that's a good point for the motion. Thank you.
I think the way the agenda is drafted, it's approximately, it gives us
within
that, it
tolerance,
gives us
yeah.
that leeway a little bit.
It's within
so
tolerance.
I think we're okay.
Okay. All right, with that, do I have a motion?
Make a motion that the board approves an agreement with New Braunfels Utility for the transfer of approximately 8 acres of water CCN service area from Green Valley SUD to NBU.
Okay, I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a second. Any discussion? No last minute questions, concerns? All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Ayes have it. Thank you. All right, going to item K, consideration and possible action related to the expenditure of funds for the Schertz wastewater master plan pursuant to the comprehensive settlement agreement between the city of Schertz and Green Valley SUD, and take action as necessary. Mr. Gage.
Okay, so I put a memo in the packet for this one. It's not very complicated, but it bears some explanation just to make sure that we're all on the same sheet of music. On the 15th of October, the city of Schertz passed a resolution in their consent agenda at their council meeting, authorized expenditures with LAN, Lockwood Andrews, and Newman to do the part of wastewater master planning that's in our comprehensive settlement agreement. So that's the advent of this. I kind of alluded to it earlier in the meeting. So basically what their resolution does is authorize their city manager to expend the funds in order to do that. What I'm asking the board here to do is authorize me to expend the funds necessary to pay our half, because our settlement agreement, we agreed to with Schertz to pay half of the wastewater master plan. And so that half comes up to a sum of $127,105, and that's half of what they're paying LAN in total. So what I'd ask for the board to do is authorize me to go ahead and pay that. I would note that, any payment over that threshold requires 2 signatures anyway. But this, formally ask for, to give me authority so I can expend these funds and move forward with that per our settlement agreement. So it's relatively simple.
Where do you take that money from?
So that's a good point. So we didn't budget line item for this one. And I would attribute that to the fact that, just in personnel turnover last year, we didn't know we had this agreement that said we would pay half until I did. And that was after the budget process. But if you recall from the 25 budget, we budgeted a pretty large sum for professional services because of the number of engineers that we had gotten RFQs for. So we've got plenty of money there. So I'm going to take this 127 out of our professional services budget. And if we come back later in the year and we have to amend it to account for this agreement, fine. If I can make it work within the 25 budget using that professional services item, that's what I intend on doing, if that clears it up.
Chris, do we need to specify the funding line item, or can?
You can in the motion.
I
I mean, administratively, they have it covered, so.
Yeah, I don't believe you do, because we have the professional services item in the budget. I'm going to charge this the professional services item. And so I don't believe you do.
We'll code it there, but no, I think they're good.
Anybody else? If not, I'll make a motion.
Yeah, Shan, are you comfortable with this? This fulfills the spirit of the agreement and the technical points of, I just want to make sure you're on board with this.
Yes, sir. I mean, I scoured the settlement agreement again, and this is within the range of what was contemplated by the 2 parties.
Thank you.
Make a motion that we authorize the general manager to expend funds for the Schertz wastewater master plan pursuant to the comprehensive settlement agreement between the city of Schertz and Green Valley SUD.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Last discussions, questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Going to item L, consideration and possible action related to non-standard water and wastewater service agreements and take action as necessary. L1, good Lord, someone help me with that name.
Your guess is as good as mine. I was calling it the 38-acre Continental Homes of Texas.
Strigonier Tract Continental Homes of Texas, LP, DR Horton Water, and NSA west of Santa Clara Road and north of Bolton Road.
Like I said, your guess was good as mine on the name. This is a residential development with a total of 225/8 by 3/4 water meters and 2 irrigation meters equaling 225 EDUs. GVSUD has adequate water supply for this development. The applicant will be responsible for the cost of terminating the water line at Santa Clara Road to provide a looped system to the existing 4-inch with a 12-inch main. The proposed development will be served by the Bolton Road meter station. The developer's cost for this project is $1,422,300 for the 220 standard water meters, plus an additional $15,428 for the 1-inch irrigation meters. The water line extension cost was an estimated $306,300, and the water acquisition fee, as it stands today, will total $450,000. That's with the 2,000 per EDU. And there is no additional cost to the district for this development.
And fire suppression, we need
Yes.
it all. Okay.
Yes. Fire suppression is available through our system.
Got it. All right. Do I have a motion for this?
Do we know, is this another mud in the ETJ or has that been?
I'm not sure at this moment, but I could get that answer pretty quick.
Doesn't seem like it. Travis, you
I
know,
wonder why they would be.
if it's a mud, this one? No.
There's a
idea.
there's a wastewater too for this one. So
Sorry, I called you Travis. I don't like
That's not critically important, just curious.
Yeah.
I'll follow up.
Anyways. Yeah.
From what I saw in the background paperwork, it looks like just an individual agreement between the home builder and the property owners.
Right.
Mhm.
And the property owners, that the reason it's hyphen struggle near there.
There you go. That's
Two
it.
people who are sisters got undivided gift deed interests in a property. So that means they both own it jointly. They both need to sign.
I think the documents would have articulated if it was a mud in some way, shape, or form.
It's not critically important, just curious. If no one else has any other questions, I'll take a stab at it. I make a motion that we approve the Strigel Near Track Continental Homes of Texas, LPDR Horton, Water Non-Standard Service Agreement west of Santa Clara Road and north of Bolton Road.
Second.
Yeah, I have a motion and a second. Discussion, questions. Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Ayes have it. Okay, going to L2, Struggle Near Track Continental Homes of Texas, LP DR Horton wastewater, NSSA west of Santa Clara Road and north of Bolton Road, Santa Clara Creek sewer shed.
Similar to the last one, this is a total of 220 LUEs, which will be served through the Santa Clara Creek wastewater treatment plant, and will utilize the capacity in the plant and future expansion. The developer will be served by the new gravity main extension to the existing gravity main that is located on the southern right-of-way of Bolton Road, just south of the development. The applicant will be responsible for the cost associated with the off-site sewer extension with a minimum 12-inch gravity main and manholes and easements, permits, and construction. The cost for each EDU is $5,985, which is the kayak fee, totaling $1,316,700. And the estimated cost of the gravity main extension for this development is $487,440. And there is no additional cost to the district for this.
I just have a geography question and I can't remember, even though I'm familiar with the area, very familiar. Is that Cibolo ETJ or Cibolo? I would think it's ETJ.
Said ETJ in the report.
ETJ. Yes, it's ETJ.
Not that it matters to us, but
Well, my question real quick to Gary, on that Bolton Road sewer line, that's the one that's going to be connecting to this development, right? So are we having to extend that line further? Or is it right positioned where it needs to be for the connection?
It's positioned where it needs to be.
Okay.
So this 12-inch line that's in the study will connect to the existing 24 that's on the south of that intersection.
Okay.
Southeast corner of the intersection.
Well, thank you for that.
And then at a high level, so we're tying into the Santa Clara treatment plant.
Yes, sir.
right.
The expanded treatment plant. So what type of a timeline, if we approve this today, does this development have before it is,
It'd be a year and a half.
extends its
before-
lines? Are we comfortable with our timeline here of when?
We should be far enough ahead of them if we haven't even seen a design from them to review.
Yeah, it's a year and a half.
So
out,
if we're
probably.
bidding in November, we should be well ahead of them.
That's my only
And
concern
we-
because
sorry.
No, go ahead, Shannon.
We also, the water, the sewer feasibility study that Gary put together, which is incorporated by reference into the contract, makes it very clear that no service will be available until that expansion is completed.
Very good.
One additional point on that, it kind of goes back to the water agreement, but Green Valley signed the easement for the water easement on the Schaefer track on Monday. So that gives us, we can go to bid with that project now. So that was our only hang up on that one. So there's also easements to acquire on this project for the sewer side. So Green Valley will be in control of that, but the developer's paying for it. So there's some easement acquisition that will delay the project. They have to get their plans done, so we know where we need to go for the offsite sewer line. So, but Shan's correct. The study says that there's no service availability until the 500,000 gallon per day plan is commissioned.
And we'll push as hard as we can, and not make that an issue on the construction of the plant.
Awesome. Thank you all very much. All right.
Staff's comfortable with that one question? No one else has anything? I'll take a stab at the name again. I'll make a motion that we approve the Strigel Near Tract, Continental Homes of Texas, LPDR Horton, wastewater non-standard service agreement west of Santa Clara Road and north of Bolton Road.
Second.
I have a quick question. So on L1 and L2, there's an E in between G and L on Straggle Near or Straggle.
We've got a typo there.
Which one is the correct version?
Look at the
judge's orders. Where is that?
I don't think it's going to adjust my pronunciation.
No, I just want to make sure for the for the record though, it's without the E.
Yeah, where's Heidi?
No, it's without the E. So we'll just strike that from there. No E. Okay. All right. So I have a motion. I have a second. Mr. Bob, thank you. Any other comments, questions? Nope. All in favor? Aye. Thank you very much. Ayes have it. All right, going to L3. Crypco Enterprise, Inc., Track, Shorts Logistic Industrial Park, Water, NSSA, northwest of intersection FM 482 and FM 2252.
This is a industrial use development for 43 acres. They're requesting 1 3-inch water meter and 1 2-inch irrigation meter, which will equate to 27.5 EDUs. GVSUD has the adequate water supply available to meet the application's need through the Edwards Aquifer and Trinity wells, and fire suppression is provided in this as well. The developer's cost for the 3-inch connection, which equals 27.5, the 3 connections, sorry, that equal 27.5 EDUs is $104,711.91. The 2 irrigation meters, or the 2-inch irrigation meter, will be a total cost of $62,411.91. With the total cost for the entire development will be $167,123.82, and the water acquisition fees as they stand right now totaling $55,000. With this development, there's no additional cost to the district.
The only question I have related to is the pressure plane area. I know that we don't have a water tower in that area, and I don't recall ever seeing a plant. I believe all of ours are south of 35. Do we have one that's north of 35 that's going to be?
Yeah, it's feeding by plant 7, 8, and 9.
Okay, so that whole area is just pushing in that
Yeah.
direction too? Okay.
Yes. Yeah, there's VFDs on those high service pumps, and you're not using the pressure tanks at 7 anymore, but there are VFDs that are supplying the pressure.
Okay. That's the only concern I had too, was just making sure we were forcing water flow appropriately. Without that, I don't have any other questions. Have a motion?
I'll make a motion that we approve the Crypco Enterprise INC track, Schertz Logistics Industrial Park, water non-standard service agreement northwest of intersection of FM 482 and FM 2252.
Have a
Second.
motion and a second. Last questions, concerns? Nope. Okay, all in favor? Aye. Ayes have it. Thank you very much. Going to item M, hear updates on items below from GVSD General Counsel and take action necessary. Texas Government Code, Section 551.071.
I'm not aware of any pending or threatened litigation or legal changes affecting the district. However, the legislature, the pre-filing of bills starts the Monday after the election. And so we'll start keeping an eye on what's coming down the pipe, and I'll start incorporating short summaries of bills of interest in my report to you under this matter in future months.
Have you been made aware of any AG complaints or filings?
No.
Of any kind? No? Okay. All right, well, thank you very much for that. All right, at this time, we're going to go into executive session, closed session in accordance with Texas Government Code, Section 551.071-551.074 and/or 551.076 on matters of which the attorney has a duty to report under Texas Rules of Disciplinary Conduct. We're going to take items N, O, and P into executive session. Time is 11:01. Awesome. All right, time is 11:47. We're going to go back into open session. We're going to go to item Q, consideration and possible action on discussed items in executive session. We have none at this time. We're going to go to R, consideration of proposed items to be included on next month's board meeting agenda.
Need to add a report from the investment committee.
Okay, report from investment committee. Thank you. Okay, we're gonna go to item S if no one has anything else.
I make a motion to adjourn.
I have a
Second.
motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Ayes have it. Motion's adjourned. Time is 11:48. Thank you.